Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I had started going live on my iPad, but then it lost the connection, so I had to come back and start all over again um, on my phone. So I'm back, and I'm glad you guys decide to join me. Um, I don't know why I can't. Now, the first slide I did, um, it connected real well, and I was able to do it on my iPad. But here recently, I haven't been able to get it to connect, and that's kind of strange. But um, what I'm going to do though, I'm going to charge my laptop um, and begin to use it instead of always using my phone. I got a dark screen today because I'm a hot mess. I hadn't been feeling that well with lupus. Lupus, it takes all of your energy. It has you really, really fatigued. And for myself, um, I'm getting ready to go back on infusions. And what that is, that's a medication, a strong medication that they give you through IV, and to help control the inflammation in your body, so you won't feel fatigue, so you won't be um, um, lethargic, so you're able to function on a daily basis. I thank you all for coming in. Hello, Renee. Hello, Fun with the Girls. Positive Queen. I can't pronounce the this other person. It's Aisil. Excuse me, love, if I can't pronounce it. But thank you all for joining me. Again, I have been feeling really, really tired because lupus, it 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 works not only on your joints, but it also works on your scalp, your skin, um, and your major organs. I have the one that works on all that. Like, it affects my lungs, it affects the kidneys and the liver, it affects my joints. Just a couple of months ago, I was diagnosed with, no, that was last year. I was diagnosed with osteoporosis of the spine, stenosis. I have had, last year, I had back surgery. A couple of years before then, I had no total knee replacement of my left knee because lupus is a form of arthritis, but it's 11 different kinds, and people really don't understand the disease itself. It even has puzzled doctors, rheumatologists, doctors who specialize in this disease. I just can't go to any rheumatologist. I have to find a rheumatologist that specialize in lupus, because all rheumatologists do not specialize in lupus. And so in learn once I was diagnosed in 1995, when it wasn't known. I had heard of it, but really didn't think that I would have it. But I didn't know the diagnosis of the disease until I was diagnosed with it. And I began to read and do my research once they diagnosed me. And the doctor itself told me um, that which one I had, because you have one with just the skin that causes you to have psoriasis really bad all over your body. And when you see most people who have that, it looks like they have either vitiligo or they've been burnt, but it be really, really bad and scaly, and so it look real bad, like sores all over you. And the skin, it looks like it's packed on top of skin, on top of skin. Just think of it as a callus all over your body. That's what it looks like. I have psoriasis of the scalp. And it used to try to come in my face, but I went to one dermatologist not knowing what my skin was doing. And by then, I had the butterfly rash that came on the bridge of your nose. That's like the first sign of lupus. And she never discussed with me with the butterfly rash. She just gave me this cream in a tube, which had steroids in it, because the butterfly rash is just what it says. It comes on on the bridge of your nose on both sides. It leaves an indentation as if you wear glasses, and it's purple in color, but it itch, and it starts out small, but it spreads just like a butterfly. So that's why they that it has the name the butterfly rash. And so I developed that rash back in the early 90s, um, after I had my first son and got pregnant with my second. Now, it's a gap in between them. It's almost like 5 years. And when I was pregnant with my oldest, I had a very hard labor. I didn't dilate to the 10 centimeters, but I stayed in labor like for 2 days. And finally, I had to have a cesarean. And the hospital that I was in, St. Luke's is a Christian hospital, so they don't like to do cesareans. They like for the women to have the children. So I couldn't. I never got to the 10 centimeters, and so I end up having to have a cesarean. And then my second son, my youngest, who's now 27. Um, Now, with him, my body did something totally different. But he too was a difficult pregnancy, because my OBGYN at the time thought that I wasn't eating correctly. I had begun to lose weight at an alarming rate. So they thought that I was either depressed or wasn't accepting that I was pregnant with, that I was actually going through some issues. And so they thought I wasn't eating. And I kept telling them that I was. I'm eating, but my body began to lose weight. And then but I end up taking him um the full term. He actually, and I began to go through the delivery process where the mucus plugs come out, and you begin to have the labor pains shortly after. I began to have that with him, and I went on into the hospital. He actually was supposed to be born November the 2nd, but he came October the 22nd, the 20, the 28th. He came October the 28th, a couple of days before Halloween. And I never forget because Martin Lawrence had just hit television, and they had did this Halloween um, show where Tommy had pretended like he was possessed, and I laughed so hard after. But I was so hungry too, and I remember my oldest sister, who right to this day does not have children, but she loved children, and she was out there in the labor room with me because she worked for Methodist, and so she could just use the walkway, the breezeway to come over, and she was back and forth, and she had got hungry, and she ran down to McDonald's to get her something to eat. She was mad. By the time she got back, I had my youngest, Carrie, and he's now 27. He's in law enforcement. He has a very serious, dangerous job. He keep me on bended knees. He keep me with my face up to God, praying that him and his group come back here home to Texas. Now he stays 3 hours outside of Houston where he went to college, but he calls me every day, just as well as my oldest. Um, I speak to him every day, but he also is a busybody. He comes every day as well. He comes by on his lunch break almost every day. It's not a day that I don't see Kelvin, my oldest, and he get on my nerves so bad because when their dad passed away, he was graduating from college out of Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas. Only like it's not even an hour away from Houston, but him and my daughter-in-law was coming out of college, and they are now married after their courtship was 7 years, and they got engaged the 8th year. And I guess they got tired of her parents asking and me asking because we raised children the way we was taught, and they never lived together, they never shacked together. Me and his father didn't allow that, and neither did hers. So their courtship was very long. I always say that the reason why it was so long is because I guess they wanted to be really, 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 really sure that's who they wanted to be with for the rest of their lives. So they end up getting engaged in December and marrying a year later in December. Her mother and father has been married for at that time it was 38 years. So they far in being married like 43, maybe 48. I mean 44. I'm not too far off because my son and her only been married 3 years, I think. 3 or 4 years. I've lost count because I really don't count the years that they've been married. Now been together 10, but they only been married 3 or 4 years. They might have made 4 years this past December. I got married to their father in December, and her mom and dad got married in December. So they have a lot in common. And I guess when you raise your children and instill those old values in them, they tend to find, especially boys, tend to find girls that are similar to their mother. I know when I started dating my husband had he exemplified a lot of factors as my father, and my father, who I miss them both very dearly, because my father raised all six of us with the help of my grandparents, his mom and dad. And I want you to imagine these older people who had lived their life, who had retired, and um, began to enjoy their life. And I remember going and beginning to stay with my grandparents, and my dad and my mother. They were married, but my grandmother, he was the baby. My grandmother only had three children, two boys and a girl, and my dad was the baby. And my father, she wanted my father to marry someone else other than my mother. And so um, my dad ended up marrying my mother, and they end up having six children. And they were a teen marriage because my mother was much younger than my father. My mother, when she turned 23 years old, she had six children, three girls, three boys. I was the fourth child. And my dad and I was a daddy's girl. I was close to my father. I remember him home on Saturday, and going to the cleaners to pick up his clothes, and I was always with him. I was always somewhere around my father. So when I met um, my husband and my father became best of friends. I remember being newlyweds, and we hadn't had any children. Um, my husband, who worked for one of the largest newspaper companies here in Houston, which at the time was the Houston Chronicle. I mean, the Houston Post. He ended up, once the Chronicle bought out the Post, he ended up working for the Houston Chronicle. But I met him at the Houston Post, it was a big newspaper company here in Houston. And I worked in the human resource department, but I was part time. And I was the one that had to hand out the checks, and they had to come in and sign for them. Now that was before direct deposit, you know. That was in the early '80s. They didn't have all this new stuff back then. Even when I started working um, for the Houston Independent School District, I worked for them for 27 years. And I think I started working for them at the age of 20, 22 or 23. But anyway, we had to go to the office, and y'all, we used to sit and wait for the mail truck to come bring that mail, because every other Wednesday was payday. We used to get paid on the 15th. When I first started working for the school district. And girl, we wait for that mail truck. And I was in the office. I was a general clerk. So you had to, once they delivered that mail, you had to sign that paperwork for that for that mail. And girl, we be sitting waiting on that check, and waiting on that mail truck to come, because HISD had, Houston Independent School District had um they own accountability, they own um grocery and delivery. They had all of it. So it didn't come by US mail. It came by the school board, the school board mail. And so when they got direct deposit though, we all had to, you had to sign up for it regardless if you wanted it or not, because that was weeding out once the school board became computerized. And that was in like the early 90s. So, that tells you, it tells me how far technology has come. My oldest son is in, his degree is in technology. So he has a wonderful job, just as well as my youngest. But the job my youngest have, it's with law enforcement. He hunts down some of the worst of the worst criminals. And so he was in California a couple of weeks ago. Um, Psychologically, they prepared them for, um, when they have to find dead bodies, and they, when they interrogate and different things like that. They take many classes of sociology. And so um, he has seen um, bodies, but when he had to go and find that baby in that landmine, or wherever the parents had discarded the baby, it literally, he was literally disturbed by that. And I tell you, I had to talk to him for days. I mean, days, you guys, encouraging him, speaking things into him. He just wanted to hear his mom's voice. He wanted to hear the realness from his mom. Now, psychologically, he already know how to deal with things such as that matter. And no, he's a U.S. Marshal. He knows how to deal. They learn that. They take those courses to be able to do their job. And so psychologically, the human side, the passionate side came out in him. And so he couldn't, he just couldn't get a grip on finding that baby. And so I had to constantly talk to him. I had to constantly encourage him. I had to bring things back to his remembrance, because when the devil, see, and people need to know that the devil only operates in the past. He does not operate in the present or the future. He tried to, that's why he tries to, it says that he tries to kill, steal, and destroy, but he don't operate in the present. He only operates in the past, only in the past. So that's why your past always comes up when we get fear, when we let fear set in, and fear is a bad thing, but fear is also a good thing because it teaches you how to overcome certain things, just like trials and tribulations that come in your life. And I want to tell you this also, that we cannot we cannot have a testimony without a test. I remember being in elementary, and the first thing they taught you, once you they taught you your alphabets and your phonetic sounds. They taught you to find a word within a word, and in that, and they taught you about compound and prefix words and suffix words, and antonyms and synonyms, words that sound the same but spelled differently, words that have the same meaning but mean something, that spell the same but mean differently. So you learn that in school. So in the word testimony, it's the word test. And so I learned this in reading the Bible and going to Bible study. I began to use what I was taught at an early age to find a word within a word. And in the word testimony is the word test. You have to endure the test. And the thing about this thing we call life, life will deal you a lot of tests, but it's how you endure the test, how you overcome, which gives you a powerful testimony. You're able to encourage someone else who might be going through. You're able to really, really comprehend and understand what that person might be going through. And what I've learned to do for myself is that I learn to listen and really, really put myself in that person's shoes. What if this had happened to me? Um, I learned to be compassionate for people, and it has taught me to be humble. It has taught me. Now my life had always been great because, as I said before, um, I lost my father. I lost two brothers. My youngest was killed at the age of 32. My oldest brother um, developed a tumor on his spine, and the doctors told my father that he wouldn't live um, for um, the span that he lived. But my brother overcame that, and he surpassed the years these doctors had given him. And but when he passed, um it was like 4 years after my youngest brother had got killed. Now, when my dad had to go and make the decision to take my brother off of life support, is when the grieving process got so difficult for my father that he had given up on life. He ended up having a massive heart attack. He went into cardiac arrest and he left from here. That broke my heart. Um, uh, Maybe 3 to 4 years later, my husband passed away. he too went into cardiac arrest and passed away. So even in death, death alone is an attention getter. It gets our attention. It stops us in our tracks and make us think about ourselves. It makes us try to understand what's really going on in this life. And so, in that, in all um, my losses, when I had to bury my husband, that's when um, this thing called life got very difficult for me. And each day I had to read the book of Psalms, Psalms 23. And I had to literally speak that into myself daily. I mean, daily. And so to be able to heal, because the grieving process for my husband after being married 28 years when he passed away was very hard because my husband worshiped the ground that I walked on. I was his queen and he was my king. And other people could see the love and the respect that we had for one another. And he also was a wonderful cook. He was a wonderful cook. People that was in the marriage ministry with us, they always was at our house for dinner, and especially during Thanksgiving and Christmas, the holidays, when we didn't travel um, to my husband's hometown, which was Memphis, Tennessee. He was born and raised in Memphis, but his mom was a wonderful cook. And when his mom had three boys, and my husband was the oldest. And at the middle boy at 16 was in a very bad car accident, and he died um, in the car accident. So my husband told me that he had to literally cook and build his mom up, back up, because the grieving process of losing a child was so hard for her. And now I can only imagine watching my dad. And when my dad passed, that was the second time I seen my husband cry. And my husband turned to me and told me that he lost his best friend. And to this day, it it gives me joy because he and my husband was, hey family at heart, hey Miss Renee, hey you all. I'm just talking, I'm going on, not really paying attention to the chat. Forgive me because this only my second live, my only second live chat, and I'm trying to get used to it. I'm trying to come out of that comfort zone, as one of my subscribers spoke about, Screw. He spoke about you have to hit that live chat and come out your comfort zone. You know, it helps you, and it helps you build your subscribers. It helps you to get to know your subscribers. So forgive me for not um, looking at the chat and recognizing you all. I love you. I thank you for coming and being here with me and listening to me. But when my father passed, because my dad, when my husband and I were in courtship, um, He and my dad became real good friends. When he would work, when we got married, and my husband would work on Saturdays, um, he would go to my dad's before he came home. And back then they ain't have cell phones, y'all. I think he had a pager, and I would be paging him. And when he did call, he was at my daddy's. And I'm like, really? Really? Really, Larry? You know, but him and my daddy, he loved to work on cars, and my dad loved to do the same thing. So him and my dad had a lot in common, and so they built this relationship. And so when my dad took ill, my husband would go and visit my dad once he got off from work. He would go and visit my dad, and a lot of times, me and my sisters we would meet him at my dad's, and my dad would want him to come because he ate a lot of he my dad where everybody loved my husband cooking. And Memphis is famous for their barbecue. So my husband was good at barbecuing, and my whole family loved his barbecue. And so when my husband passed away, a lot of the family members got up and spoke about, even my pastor, even my pastor, they all got up and spoke how well, and how they love to be at our home, during the holidays and during the summer when my husband cooked, because they loved his barbecue. Everybody got up and spoke about that. But it's a wonderful thing, because when I look back over, my family life, who has passed on, it it tells you how they lived and how they treated people, especially my youngest brother and my father and my husband, because when they passed away, when my youngest brother passed away, you thought he was a celebrity. It was so many people from everywhere, old to young, and all they could do was walk up and tell my father how much they was going to miss him, because he would just stop by and tell them, hello, and talk to them, and just show his face to everybody. And my dad had that same personality. My brother that's before me, I only have one brother left, my brother Phil, who's a barber, and he has that same personality. So when my youngest brother passed, now mind you, I didn't have that. I didn't have it, even working with the school district. I just didn't, I just didn't talk to people. I didn't have that personality. But when my youngest brother passed away, and speaking to everyone, and how that's what people said. And then my dad, I look back on how he was. He could go. He was a truck driver for Kroger's for over 30 years. And so he met a lot of people. And so even in little small towns, going towards San Antonio, um, he would stop, and people knew him, you know, and I experienced that. And so that's what made me, when my youngest brother passed, it made me change and stop, being so consumed with self, and not really opening up, and being saying hello and talking to people. And so that's what really changed me. It brought me out of my shell. And listening to me today, you wouldn't be able to tell that. But baby, when I get on the road, I'll talk your ears off. You know, I used to talk my husband asleep, you know, and so and so that helped me, and I began to change because they have that saying is that how a person lived their life when they die. And so they had all these people, I mean people from everywhere. And the funeral home that does my family bodies and funerals, um, the owner um, not too long passed away about 3 years ago, but it was a family business. He had his sons there that would run, the funeral home, and he literally had to close my youngest brother, casket. He literally had to stand up in front of the people and tell them that it surpassed the hour that we allow wakes, because at that time we were still doing wakes. We weren't doing the 1 day service that we do now. We wake the body, and then the next day you funeralize them and bury them. And so it was so many people there for my youngest brother. It was a line from the casket outside the door. That's just how many people were there. I was raised Methodist, and in Third Ward of Houston on Dowling Street is this big black um, Episcopal Methodist church called Wesley Chapel. I was raised in that church, and so that church is huge. But the sanctuary is alone itself. People feel that sanctuary. People were standing up. It was people all in the balcony. And I was just amazed, amazed at the people that came out and showed my father and us love. I mean, they had given, um, and my grandparents are from Louisiana, and so when my dad got custody of us, my grandmother, um, who bought insurance policies and plots for my dad's 6 children. And she told us when she got sick. Out by then I had graduated high school. But my youngest sister and my youngest brother were still home. And so she had said that her prayer was that she asked God daily, just give me the strength to stay here to see these children get grown so they don't have to depend on anyone, that they don't have to ask anyone for anything. My grandmother and my grandfather were, and my father were strong, strong individuals. And my grandmother and my grandfather didn't have a high school education. They came out the cotton fields. They were slaves. So um, and she was the matriarch of her family. Everyone looked up, her nieces and all, nieces, nephews, uh, everyone looked up to Aunt Florence. her name was Florence, but uh, Louisiana people and Creole people have this French accent, and when they all get together in one room and they begin to talk, is sometimes it's very hard for me to understand what they talking about because of the accent that they have. And if you never been to Louisiana or New Orleans, you need to go. It's a very rich heritage there. So my grandmother was the matriarch of her family because she owned a home. She was raising her grandchildren. Um, she raised her three children with on at that time it probably was a good salary for them, but it was low, and she raised her three children um, with they made a way, basically. And when I was coming up, baby, I thought we were rich. I didn't know we were poor. And not only did she help raise us, my grandmother went back to school to get her cosmetology license. She also was a seamstress. She could sew she could sew and make anything, and it's so amazing how I look back and I understand generational curses because my youngest sister, her oldest daughter, her first and her oldest daughter, um, had good jobs. She graduated from college as well, but she never could find her niche, like what she really wanted to do. And the last 3 years, my niece went back to school. She went back to school to be a massage therapist. She has her license in that. She also have her license in doing skin care and eyebrows. And she just went back and got her license to do acrylic nails. So, because here in Houston, we have those shops are operated and owned by Japanese and Chinese people. You don't have any black shops that's open here um, when it comes to acrylic nails. So she just went back and got her license to do acrylic nails. And so I was talking to her maybe about a month ago, and she was saying, because she was raised, my youngest sister had her at 16, so we all helped. The older ones all helped my younger sister raise her. But when I got married, she was a baby. So she was kind of raised in the house with my boys, even through elementary school. She was in the fourth or fifth grade, and her and my oldest boy went to school together. And so her and I was talking. We had been on the phone for about 3 hours. Now, she does have a daughter, my great niece, who's beautiful. And I mean beautiful. When I look at the daddy and her, and look at my great niece, I always tell her, Lord, I just can't figure this thing out. How in the world y'all produce this beautiful young girl? Now she looks like her mom. Don't get me wrong. She looks like her mother. She looks like my niece. But girl, she look better. Better. Then and I ain't I wouldn't lie to you. And she always she always laughed at me when I tell her that. Cause I said, girl, how you got this? Well, I know how you got her, but how did you make her? She got these light, beautiful, light brown eyes. She has this beautiful light skin. She's lighter than her mom and dad. And so when I look at her, I'm just in amazement, because I'm looking at it and I'm looking at the mama and dad. I mean, they ain't bad looking, but they don't look like they produce something like that, because she really can be a model. And I tell my niece that. I tell her that all the time. But my niece, she's 13, y'all, now, my great niece. And her too was always raised in the house with me and her uncle. And so she I talk to her sometimes every day, all day by FaceTime because her mom homeschool her now. And so she always laugh at me and say, Ain't why you say that? I say, oh, ain't being ugly and facetious. I'm just still trying to find out her DNA makeup. Is she really is her daddy really the person you say her daddy? And she fall out laughing and she say, yeah, yeah. And I say, well, she looked like you, but she got both of y'all beat. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. And I've been saying that for 13 years, niece. And so the older she get, the more beautiful she gets. She gets. She gets. And so my my great niece, her daughter, um, picked up braiding hair. Um, And I asked Zoe, I said, Zoe, where did you learn how to do that? And she said, well, my sister taught her how to braid, but she took it farther. She took it to the point where the girl know how to not only braid, but she know how to do the box braids. She know how to do the twist, um, the twist braids. She know how to do the locks. Um, it ain't nothing that she don't know how to do when it comes down to braiding. Now somebody want to call me during my live. That's so disrespectful. But my niece, my great niece, learned how to do these things. And so I asked her, I say, Zoe, how you learn how to do all that? And she said, well, my granny, she taught me how to braid. And she said the rest I learned on watching YouTube videos. Now, she did her mom's hair with the lock, the twist braids. And I looked at that girl and I say, girl. So I hung up from her and called my niece. And I told my niece, I said, girl, you need in your shop, you need to make a space for her to braid hair. You need to because my niece always talking about how much my niece eat and she want the most expensive things. You know how children are. And so she always talking about how much she eats. Now her dad, my niece dad's side, my great niece dad's side of the family are tall people. Now, I'm not talking about your average tall, you know, I'm talking about like trees. Like her dad stand like 6'7". Her, the baby boy stands like 7 something feet. And then the middle, Chamberlain. Now, Chamberlain is not as tall as they are, but he's tall. He's like 6 feet or 6'1". But her dad is is tall. The mom and dad is too as well. They are tall people. And so my niece for 13 is tall. She stand every bit of 5'3", maybe 5'4". My niece Cassidy is I guess Cassidy must be maybe 5'3". You know, her and my sons are the tallest because my mom and dad were short. Even my grandparents and my dad had that Neapolitan syndrome. So did my brothers because they were short in stature, you know. And so my dad, he ain't too much take no disrespecting from um, a man, you know. And so and my brother too, my youngest brother too. That's why the guy killed my youngest brother, because they had been fighting. Now they wasn't the same age, but they had been fighting since they were kids. They were and he lived in the same area that we lived in. Matter of fact, he lived like right up the street and around the corner from us. I didn't know the young man because I was older, but my youngest sister, she knew of him. And so that's how he stayed on the run when he killed my brother, because it started out as a fist fight, but he waited on my brother to come back to where they initially was, and then he killed my brother. He ran him down and shot him. And so we were taught that if one fight, you all had to fight, because if you didn't, you were gonna get in trouble by my dad. So my dad didn't play that. Now he didn't advocate fighting, but he did tell us that we had to protect ourselves. You didn't go pick a fight. We wasn't bullies, but people would fight us because we always had new bicycles. We always wore, the nicest clothes and stuff like that. And when I was coming up, we went into name brand, so my grandmother would make, she would make us these little short rompers for the summer. And we always had our hair combed. And back then, when I was coming up, it wasn't no such thing as a perm. They didn't have perms then. You were all natural. Natural was back in long long years ago, like back in the 60s and the 70s, and I never forget when my grandmother did stop doing our hair because she became a kidney patient. She went into renal failure. So they put that graft in her right arm. And so she lost strength in that arm. And so she no longer could do, our hair. And so I remember her finding this beauty shop that wasn't far from our house. And they had just um, put on the market a perm. Now, when I tell some of y'all this, y'all probably ain't gonna remember, but the first perm was a pressing comb in a jar. That was the name of it. And the last time I seen that on the shelf, it was in Target. Target. And that was a long time ago. That was back in the late 80s when I seen it in Target on the shelf. But it was called a pressing comb in a jar. And And that was the first perm for us colored people. And I never forget going to the beauty shop and my grandmother talking with the beautician about the perm, and she had the perm, and so that's when I got my very first perm. And but other than that, my grandmother would um, sew our sundresses. We were always in style, in style. And at this particular time, we were one of the biggest families in the church. So everyone knew us. And on Saturdays, you had to go to practice, where if you were an usher, you did your usher practicing. If you sung in a choir, you practiced that. We did that every Saturday. And the pastor at the time, Reverend Coates, would drive the van to pick us up, to pick the children up every Saturday. So, I was raised in the church, in the church. And so, that's the way I raised my children. Now, and I didn't change from what was instilled in me. And one thing my dad was a big advocate on was education. And so when I had my children, and now I and my nieces, I'm a big advocate. My niece and nephews, I'm a big advocate on education. It was instilled in me and my brothers and sisters, so I instilled that in my boys, and I thank God for it, because they did things me and my husband did not do, and one of them was college graduates. Now we were high school graduates, but we weren't college graduates, and so um, to watch my sons grow up in public school. Now they never went to the school where I worked. I always sent them to the school that either we were zoned to, or either um, the school that they could go to, because they were in gifted and talented as children, and they started out in elementary in the gifted and talented program. That means once you in that magnet program, um, you're able to go to any school in the um, school district in Houston. And so they both were in the gifted and talented. And I to this day, I still sit back and try to figure out which one of my sons was the smartest. And I can't put my finger on it. And they when they had to take the standardized testing, they always got commended. They always flew through that test. Nothing was difficult for them. They were like sponges. I remember teaching them how to read at the age of 3, and I did my nieces the same way. My nieces and nephews the same way. I started them early, and so they could read by the time they got ready to go to school, got of school age. They could read, and they just showed up and showed out. They were like sponges. It was nothing too hard for them. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm humble for it. It taught me that I should be grateful, that I have these boys who were able to do things that me and my husband didn't. And as a parent, you always want the best for your children. You never want them to have to struggle. but they do. They have to understand what this thing called life is all about, you know. And so my youngest, um, we were with, he had come home um, for Christmas, and we were with my oldest and my daughter-in-law, and he was saying, he told me just before he left, he told me that how he was driving, and when he get to Houston, you know, girl, y'all, he tearing these Houston streets up, you know, because he's trying to go see his friends that he went to school with, who he played football with, who he graduated with. So he said that he was driving, and he said he was just driving, and he was thinking, and he just, before he knew it, he was just, you know, crying with, he was filled with joy and being grateful for everything that, you know, he had been through, and everything that me and his dad had instilled in him. And so he said that, you know, everything, Mom, that you guys had did for us, and even with Dad, when Dad got sick, you know, because he was a daddy's boy. Him and my husband were very close. Now, although he and I are both Scorpios, oh baby, he gave me a run for my money. He did some of the silliest things. I couldn't get this boy to understand not to do that. The school called me every day. Every day, his fifth grade teacher called me. Every day. Sometimes I would hate to answer the phone because I knew he had done something that was crazy. And so that's because he would finish his work and he would get bored. So he would agitate and bother the children. And I always would tell my son's teachers, please give them plenty work. Give them the hardest. I don't care. But my oldest son, he didn't like being fussed at, nor did he like punishment. So he learned that very quickly, you know. But that little one, oh no, 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 no. What really helped him is when he played football, from flag football all the way through Little League until he aged out of it. And so I think in middle school, you can play football your seventh or eighth grade year. They allow you to play sports. So he began, after being aged out of Little League, he began to play football for his middle school. And if they won, like their little area championship, then they what's that? They prime game um, would they would play in the stadium. And here in Houston, the school board has four stadiums that allow the children to high school play at. And so they had won a little district. They had beat all the other little middle schools. So they championship game they played in Burnett Stadium, and he was so excited. And at the time, he played the position of the, you know, he was the one who hiked the ball to the quarterback. You know, as much as he played, and as much as him and my oldest son, as much as they played, I still ain't learned football. So I would be up in the stands, y'all, um, at his high school games, yelling all at the wrong time. And my husband and my oldest son would have to tell me, "Mama, sit down. It ain't time. No, it ain't time for that right now." you know, I still haven't learned football. And even when he went off to college, his freshman year, he made, you know, the football team. And college football, they play like little league. They play in the middle of the day when it's hot. And lupus don't allow me to be in the sun. Let me see what somebody asked me. That's touching. What's the memory remember about him? That's so people loved him. Can't stay, but can show you love. Thank you, Simply Made. Thank you. I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy that you all are here. Miss Renee, I enjoy all you guys' videos. I try to leave positive comments and how much I enjoy your videos. But I thank you all for coming and listening to me. But even and when he graduated high school, I thought I was done. I thought I was done with being his cheerleader. And I never forget his his teammates in high school. They would always tell him, "Hey, KB, your cheering section is here." They would make jokes because I was so loud, y'all. And then I had this cowbell that I would ring, and parents would sit by me, and sometimes the parents would tell me to yell for to get their child attention. Attention. God, y'all, I was out there bad, y'all. And so yeah, they used to tease him and say, "Hey man, your cheering section is here. Your mom is here. your mom, your mom is here." And so my oldest son say, "Oh, why you got to be so loud? Why, mama?" And so, but he and my husband would tell me, would nudge me and tell me when to yell, when to ring the bell, and all kinds of stuff. But those were fun days. But when he went off to college, college would play in the middle of the day. And here in Texas, it's hot. We really don't have a winter. But and like today, it's not even spring. But y'all, we I woke up and it was 57, almost 60 degrees, and the sun wasn't even out. I'm talking about 7:30, not even 8 o'clock. You know, so yeah, here in Texas, we're very hot. We don't have a winter that much. Now last week, the temperature dropped down to 28. But by the weekend, we were back in the 70s and the 80s. So this morning, they say we're supposed to have another little cold front come through, but not bad as up north in Wisconsin and Chicago and New York, where they having those blizzards and stuff. We don't we mm-mm. You ain't gonna get that in Texas, you know. So but yeah, my children were something else, but you could tell when my oldest son meet some of my youngest son friends, they always say that they're different, like night and day. And my youngest, people used to tell me that, they used to always say he looked like me until they seen his father. And then they would say, oh, no. We thought he looked exactly like you, who had the baby? You or your husband? And my husband was standing there laughing. And for me, I couldn't see it. I didn't see it until my husband passed away. Then I really, really, really could see that he was the spitting image of my husband. And the older he got, the more he looked like his father. And so even my mother-in-law, um, when she came here from Memphis to his graduation, um, she said then, he the spitting image. But my husband looked at just like his mother. He looked at just, he was the spitting image of his mother. She was just a woman and he was in a male form, but they looked just alike. And so even when their dad passed away is when I could really see that. And now he has this beard, and his beard is full. Like my oldest son, his beard won't grow in full as the youngest one. It's like he have patches in his beard, so he don't wear facial. He have a mustache, but he don't wear a beard. And so my youngest son has a full beard, and I used to always tease him and ask him, "Man, why don't you cut that mess off your face? That's horrible." And he said, "No, Mom, I'm not cutting my." I say, "What, you're trying to look older?" And because he had this young face, and you really couldn't tell, how old he was. And so for me, I think he wear the beard to look older. But now he's 27. He's not married. Neither one of my children have children. And my oldest son and my daughter-in-law, I was telling people that they dragged me on um, they vacation trips with them, and I be trying to get out of them, but they being already, paid for me, and so I just have to go. But I be wanting to stay home because I be wanting them to, go on vacation and have themselves a good time, and to hopefully get their groove on and bring in me some grandchildren. See, that's what I'm waiting on. And we have this talk almost every day about them starting, their family, because they're not getting any older. And I want to be able to enjoy my grandchildren. I'm also praying for a daughter, a granddaughter. I never had girls, and I never learned how to comb hair. But whenever my great nieces and my niece would come and stay with me and spend time with me and their uncle, the mamas had to comb their hair and send them with head scarves because I couldn't comb hair. And my nieces, they liked it that because they knew they didn't have to worry about anyone yanking and pulling on their head because I couldn't comb hair. And so I remember one weekend going to pick up my great niece and my niece, and so at my youngest sister home, and so my youngest sister asked my niece, did she have, did they have their combs and brush and stuff for their hair? And so my niece looked at her mama and told her, say, we don't need that. Say, because Aunt Rochelle can't comb no hair. We don't need that. And I fell out laughing. I say, the damn of y'all. That's the only reason. Okay, dear Simply Made. Thank you for coming, my love. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you, love. And I laugh and I say, well, the damn of you too. Oh, that's it's ain't Rochelle can't comb no hair. So, I never learned how to comb hair and wish she was telling the truth. But I ain't need her to put me on blast like that now. Like that now. But she's 14 and my great niece is 13. And they growing up together because my youngest sister had uh, my niece Cassidy at 16. So um, my sister ended up having a son and a daughter. Now my nephew and my niece are she's not my oldest niece, but my niece and her brother are 16 years apart. And then he's 17 now, and then my niece, who's Katie is 14, and then her great niece, the mom and the daughter, was pregnant at the same time. And so um, their birthdays are in October. Like Zoe's is October the 12th, and Katie's is October the 27th, because my youngest birthday is October the 28th. And so, them two are right there together. Like they grew up together, Annie and Aunt, So my sister would have this thing as dressing them like they were twins. And so one day, it was cute at the time, but the older they got, I didn't think that was okay. So I told my sister, I said, Rainette, you can't, you got to separate these two. I said, because even though they are close in age, Katie is the aunt, Zoe is the niece. And Zoe used to fight the Amy. She used to pinch and scratch Katie, especially when Katie didn't do what she wanted her to do. And so one day, when they were always with me, I would always have to, you know, get on Zoe, because Zoe was always doing things to her aunt. And so I had to go to my sister and tell her, you gonna have to separate, the and let um Zoe know that she is the niece and not the boss of her aunt. And there is an age difference. And it is a level of respect with these two. She would scratch and peach on her aunt Katie, and Katie wouldn't fight her back. And so one day I was there at my sister's, and they was in there taking themselves a bath, getting ready for school. They were still very young. They had to been about around 6 or 7 years old. And so they were back there fighting. Well, Katie jumped out the bathtub and run in there just bone naked. And I had to stop her and tell her, hey, don't come in here like that. And so she was trying to tell her mom that Zoe was back there fighting her. And so when she ran back and got her a towel, she come back, and I was sitting there on the stool, on the ottoman, under the window. And so she was standing there telling my sister what my great niece was doing. And so I looked at her and I say, come here. And I say, you listen to me good. I say, I want you to reach, and I showed, I say, I want you to reach way back as far as you can and pop the hell out of her. I say, and when you do that, she gonna stop fighting you. She gonna stop pinching you. She gonna stop that. I say, you got to teach her that you are older and you are the aunt, and you need, she needs to learn some kind of level of respect, because my great niece Zoe was just wearing her out, y'all. I mean, just she would, I would buy them coloring books, and so she would snatch her, if I turned my back, she would snatch Katie's paper and ball it up, and all she would break her colors. Girl, that little girl was a terror to her aunt. And so I had to tell my sister, stop, stop, because Zoe is not going to have respect for her. You need to teach them the difference. And so my that that's where I believe she picked up, um, where she's doing massages, nails, skin, eyebrows. She does all that, but she had like good jobs. She worked for. She became um, a financial loan officer for Wood Forest. She also worked for this new energy company in accountability. So my niece always had good jobs, but she never would stay on a job. She would lose interest, and she was always finding herself trying to find something that she was comfortable in. And so here recently, within the last 4 years, she went back to school and she became a massage therapist. She became, learned how to take care of skin. She learned how to do eyebrows, and then here recently, she went back and learned how to do acrylic nails. And so now she have this wonderful business that she has built. And she loved what she's doing. And I had to tell her that you got that from um, your great grandmother, who went back to school to learn cosmetology at an age where she had retired. My grandmother had retired, and but she went back to Franklin Beauty School. It's one of the first black owned cosmetology schools here in Houston, and they have more than one, but the oldest is on the southeast side of town. But anyway, my grandmother went back to school and got a cosmetology license. Even her daughter, my aunt, came home, back to Houston, and went to school with my grandmother, and she got hers as well. My aunt left and went to California, where she raised, Los Angeles, California, where she raised her family. And so, her and her husband worked for the Postal Service in LA. And so they would travel like during the summertime to come and visit um, my grandparents. And so we were there. And so and my aunt had two daughters and a son, who are all grown, and they were much older. Well, the youngest is not, but her two older daughters were like my oldest sister and my oldest brother ages. And so, yeah, and I told my niece that's how, I think that's where she um, got that from, because my youngest sister, she learned how to sew. And I remember her making her drill team uniform. She went to the school, her and my grandmother. Yeah, her. Hey, D Money. 504. Hey, love. I ain't seen you in a while, dear, on these YouTube streets. But yeah, she learned how to. My youngest sister learned how to sew um, in her high school years, and so I told my niece, I believe that's where she inherited. Hey, Dre Day, how are you? How are you? Thank you for joining me in this live. But I told her I believe that's where she her interest came from is because of her great grandmother, my grandmother, who sewed and who did hair, and I told her I think that's really where she got it from, you know. And so she does really well. And she loves it, you guys. She loves it. And I always um, tell them and talk to them about finding their purpose, knowing what they were put here to do, what they were called to do, their calling. And it's one thing I learned when the Bible talks about the Garden of Gethsemane. The Garden of Gethsemane was a beautiful place, you know, and Gethsemane means olive press. Who is the olive? We are. And once we accept Christ into our life, we need to know who God is. And so we are the olive press. We are our life, the tribulations that we go through is a teaching lesson for us. And the olive press is us. You know, it the life press you to get the best out of you. What your purpose is. And I was saying earlier that cannot have a test. You cannot have a testimony without a test. You have to be able to endure the test. You have to be able to pass the test in order to have a testimony, to be able to encourage and speak positive things into someone else. And so I learned that. I learned um, and studied the word and to know the word for myself. And it says that, it plainly tells us that. And so people always want to blame Eve for what Adam done. But don't you know that Adam had just as much sense as Eve? Think about that. Eve really didn't make him eat that fruit. He did that because that's what he wanted to do. He did that because he wanted to do. He did that because that's what he wanted. Not because of, because they knew not to eat that. They knew that. God had already told them. He had already given them everything. Just like us. That's when free will came upon the earth. That's when we begin to have choices that we make in our life that cause us to have, that cause consequences. But my dad instilled in us to learn from our mistakes because it's a lesson in that, you know. And he used to say he ain't raised no dodo birds. He ain't raised no class clowns. So you couldn't cut up in school. When I was a child, my dad was about education. You got to get that education. And so I didn't too much change from that when I had my children. And I never forget when my youngest brother was killed. Um, my dad, I had gotten my dad, and he had came out to our house, and he had stayed with us for a while. And so my dad would always tell me, Shelly, that's short what they used to call me for Rochelle. Um, Please don't be so hard on the boys. And so I looked at him and I waited a while, because even as an adult, I still gave my dad the utmost respect. I never would curse or talk back to my father. So, in a very quiet, still voice, I waited a minute, I pondered over it, and I told him, I said, Daddy, I say, where you think I got that from? He looked at me. I say, everything that you taught us, I remember. That was put in me. You know, he started laughing. He told me, he say, Shelly, I really didn't think y'all were listening. I really think, I thought y'all wasn't paying attention. And he laughed and he say, oh, and he was so happy to know that what he had taught was in me. And I was exemplifying what he had taught me to them, you know. And with my husband and I not being college graduates, we still wanted our children to be better than us, to accomplish things that we hadn't accomplished. And as a parent, I don't know any parent that don't want the best for their children. And so he laughed, but he was also amazed that what he had taught, I had gotten, that I didn't deter from that. And so, and so I instilled that in my boys. And so I'm thankful, I'm grateful for them, for and I ain't like the punishments, because my daddy, he taught us our timetables. He taught us how to divide, and you had to get it. You had to know that when he sat down and wanted to question you about your math and different things, you had to know that he wanted to know that you knew it. And if you didn't, he used to have his fork, and he used to pop us on our knuckles with that fork. And so if you didn't want to get popped, you better know it. So baby, we was back there getting it. you know he didn't play that. And my dad drove truck, for Kroger's for years. So even when we would get home from school, he was there, you know. And so my daddy took ownership in raising us with the help of his mom and dad, my grandparents. But I had a rich um, growing up, not monetarily, but rich in heritage and knowledge. And so it was his thing that he would always tell us, you got to learn from your mistakes. I didn't raise no class clowns. I didn't raise no dunce. I'm not, that's not what I'm doing here, you know. So even though he was a hard worker and he was gone hours from us, he would come home and sit down and talk to my grandparents on what we were doing. And so a lot of times, my grandfather wouldn't tell, they wouldn't, my grandparents wouldn't tell everything. But if you got in trouble bad enough, they will spill the beans. And so my dad would tell them, well, if that, why y'all just not telling me this, you know? And boy, we would be at the den because grandmother them, um, they had this home, this beautiful home. And when we began to live with them, they added on two big bedrooms and a bathroom, full size bath. And so um, it was a big house. It's a big house today, and we still go there. No one lives in it, but we still go there and check on the house and make sure everything is okay. But everyone in the neighborhood knew us, so our neighbors as well, especially Mr. Richards, who's been um, my our neighbor forever, you know, over 40 years. And so he looks out, and my oldest sister and my youngest sister, um and me, we all check on it, but they're able to go there, pass by there like every day and check on it because they live closer than I do to um, the house. But anyway, we all participate in it. And so in this neighborhood on the southeast side of Houston, off of Yellowstone, um, we had this big 4 bedroom house that had two full size bathrooms. You know, we were, you know, we, like I say, we didn't know we was poor. We didn't, you know. It just because we had some of every and anything we wanted, you know. And I'm grateful for that, you know. I'm grateful that I had um, two loving grandparents that stopped in their life to raise, to help my father raise 6 children. And my grandmother them still had they still smoked and drank a little bit. They had card parties that went on Fridays where everyone would come and gather at my grandmother's house and play cards and have a good time. So when we got there, my grandparents changed their whole life. Like they stopped smoking. My grandmother had smoked Benson and Hedges. My grandfather smoked Marlboros. You know, they stopped smoking. They stopped drinking. They brought us up in church. You know, they just changed their life for us. And I remember my grandmother, you know, she was up in age. You know, her nieces and brothers would tell her, her sister and brothers would tell her, Aunt Flan, they used to say Aunt Flans because they from Louisiana. And if you ever heard any Louisiana people speak, you know, when they all get together, you barely can understand what they saying. But my grandmother's name was Florence, and they would call her Flines and Flines, you know. And they told her to that, you know, her and my grandfather were too old to raise 6 children. My youngest brother, who has now passed on, um, was a baby. He was still in diapers on a bottle, you know. It was three of us, not of school age, and to look at that, and to talk about it with my niece and my great nieces. It's an amazing thing, amazing, because my niece Cassidy, who is now, she turned 32 in February. Um, she asked me, where did she get her interest of skincare and hair and nails from? And I told her, I said, well, your mom, your mom can do hair very well, but your mom never, you know, she never got um, her license in cosmetology. But I told her, I said, not only that, your mom can sew just as well as your great grandmother could. You know, I said, your mom can cut patterns. She can make just about anything like my grandmother could. And so she say, yeah, you know what? I say, but your mom just don't take hold, to anything. She don't finish anything. She start out real well, but she never, finished the product. And I told her, I said, I believe, and I know that's where you get that from, you know. And so she said, I always wanted that. She said, yeah, my mom, and I don't understand my mom sometimes because it's so much that she knows how to do. Like she's real crafty, she's good with her hands. And me, mm-mm, no, no, I didn't pick that up, you know. But she does, my sister do really, really well, you know, if she would stay with a project. And so I was talking to her daughter, her oldest daughter, about, because my niece said, she sit up and she wonder about things such as that. And so I told her, I say, yeah, I say, well, just call your auntie. My oldest sister, I say, your auntie that can vouch for it as much as I can, I said, and I really truly believe um, that's where you got it from. It was always in you. You just had to pull it out of you. And so even with her, she made me cry. And I'm going to try not to tear up when I say this. Her everything she had been through, she went back to church. And so, I mean, she was living regularly. But my great niece, her daughter, was getting older, and her daughter can see these things her mom was doing. So my my niece said that she needed to change. She needed to um, do things differently because her daughter was saying a lot of things. And so she didn't want her daughter to see these things she was doing. So she took a 90-degree turn and she went back to church. And she told her pastor, that how she got her foundation in Christ was because of her aunt and uncle, that I instilled that in her. And so um, she went back and dedicated her life back to Christ and began to go to church. And when she began to do that, doors opened up for her. And that's when she went back to school and got all these licenses to do what she's doing today, and she loved it. And I always told them that you have a purpose. You got to find out what your purpose is. And I don't want you to wait until you're in your 50s for a bell to go off to say, "Oh, this is what my purpose is." No, you need to know that. You need to find that out in your early ages, 20 to 25. That's what I believe. Now, I don't I don't take anything from, because in this life we are not exempt from anything. So, um, I instilled that in her even at a young age, just as well as I thought my children weren't listening, as well as my dad thought that we weren't listening. Um, they began to show and exemplify what was instilled in them. And so when the older they got, the more you can see, what you have taught and instilled in your children. And so both of my sons became, and my niece became, high school graduates and college graduates. Something that my husband and I did not do. And so now they do very well for themselves. They even dump money into my account, especially my youngest, and I never understood. I never knew why and they got my banking information from me, like, for my birthday. And them two, I call they dad used to say jigaboo. And I would sit and think and say, what these two jigaboos is up to? I wonder what they got going on, you know. And so instead of, because they knew I wouldn't take it, so instead of them um, giving it to me in my hand, they just took it and put it into my account. And so that's when I realized, oh, this the game they want to play. But y'all, when they give it to me, I ain't give it back. I would call them and tell them, thank y'all. Why y'all ain't got to do that? Y'all don't have to do that for me. And when they dad passed, my oldest and my daughter-in-law had graduated college. He had come home, and my husband had just passed. I just so happened heard him on the phone talking to one of his friends, and I guess the friend wanted him to meet them, and they go out somewhere, and he had told them, say, well, no, I can't go, man. I just lost my dad, and I got to be here for my mother, to make sure she's okay. And so I heard that. And so when he got off the phone and he came out of his room, in the den to talk to me, I looked at him and I told him, I said, Kelvin, I said, Mama don't want you to sit here and worry about me. I say, I'm going to be okay. Believe me, I'm going to be okay. He say, oh, I know, Mama. I say, yeah, but I heard your conversation. I heard what you said. And I say, I don't want you not carry. Now, my youngest hadn't left yet, but he was, we had gotten all these things, and they were at the door, bins and stuff that he needed to go, and all his toiletries and comforters and stuff like that, sheets, washer powder, all that kind of stuff. We had that all piled up at the door. So I was telling my oldest son, no, I don't want you to stop living your life. I want you to go on and do what what your mom and dad have instilled in you to do. No, don't do that. But even though me saying that, it still didn't make any difference because he hung in there with mom until mom went back to work. I did end up going back to work for the school district. Not only that, once I stopped, I think I worked for like 3 or 4 years, and then I stopped and I went to work for Harris County, the Juvenile Detention Center. I worked there for 2 years, but when I got there, I cried every day, because they had, when I got there at that time, they had a child in there that was 9 years old. But these children had committed um, violent crimes. You know, they were murderers, they were robbers. And my oldest son thought that I was joking when I told him that that's the place where they put children when they commit violent crimes. And he said, "No, mama, for real." And so when I started working for him, that's when he really knew, oh my God. But he said, "Mama, but it don't look like no jail." Because it looked like this big old nice office building, like a bank building. You know, it didn't look like a jailhouse for kids. But yeah, they house very, very violent children, and I cried every day because it just was a sad job to hear and to read some of the crimes that these children had done. And so I did that for 2 years. And then I had to be placed on disability because my lupus was so active that they couldn't get it under control. And they started me on these infusions where you go in and you take this medication through IV. And it takes about 3 hours for you to get the medication, for you to go through the process. And I would get it once a month because my lupus had got so active that they just couldn't control it with the prednisone and things like that. And so the diclofenac and all that kind of medication. And so my rheumatologist at the time, who specializes in lupus, um, told me that I would have to go on that for them to get control of it. And so I went on that for like 4 to 5 years, and now um, my lupus is it never left, but it's active, and it's to the point where I have to be put back on the infusion. And the medication that they give me is called Benlysta. And Benlysta is a strong medication. The doctor have to be in the office in order for the nurses to start the infusion. That's how strong this medication is. But it helps. I cut my hair um, last year around Christmas time, and I never had a problem with my hair growing. But my oldest son, begged me not to cut my hair. And so I said, no, I am, because I'm tired of wearing it in this ponytail. And it had gotten so long. And so I always wore my hair short. And so when I cut my hair last year, um, it never grew back. It never uh, grew back to the length that it was when I cut it. Now I had did that over a year ago, and so I told my son when I did cut my hair off. What I did is that I waited for the perm to grow completely out of my hair, and when my youngest son, before my youngest son left, um, he um, he went to go get his hair cut, and so I asked to go with him, and so he said, "Mom, you finna cut your hair?" I said, "Yeah, because look at it, it hadn't grown from the last time I cut it, and so from last year, and so I let the perm wear off, and so I cut it down to the natural fro. So I'm natural now, and I was talking to the barber about um, what had happened to my hair, and he said, "Yeah, you know those chemicals are very harsh when we put that into our hair." And so I let the perm grow all the way out. It still was on the ends, but like from the root and on out, it had come off. So I cut my hair all the way down and got all cut off the rest of the perm, and now I'm natural so that my hair can grow. I don't think I'm gonna put any more chemicals back into my hair. My daughter-in-law, who's been natural for a while now, um, she only used natural products in her hair, and her hair is very long now. She They blow dried it for the wedding, and she put it in this French twist, so her hair is very very long, um, but she been natural for a minute. As I think she cut it off right after I buried my husband. So that's it's gonna be this month. It's gonna be 9 years that he's been gone, and so she cut it off like right when he passed, and so now her hair is tremendously long, and so she had been helping me with my hair, and so when I cut it off, um, um, she told me she bought me the natural products to use in my hair to keep my scalp moisturized and everything, and keep my hair moisturized and for it to grow. And so because I suffer with psoriasis extremely bad, um, psoriasis of the scalp, really bad, like I'll have sores, and I keep my hair washed like every other day, because you would have to scrub and then they gave me um, a solution. My rheumatologist gave me a solution for my scalp, and it comes in like this 4-ounce bottle, and it smelled like it got a tinge of alcohol in it. But I take it and I put it all over my scalp, and that's really what controlled the psoriasis, because it would get so bad it would discolor like the hairline in the front of my scalp. It would come all the way down there and discolor my skin. And so I began to go and ask my rheumatologist for things to help me with and then the perms didn't make it no better. But I went and I asked her for something for my scalp. And by then I had had that discoloration. The psoriasis had gotten so bad it had come down to my hairline in the front, and it had discolored my skin right at my hairline. And so she gave me this solution. It's a prescription, but she gave me this solution, and that's actually what helps control my psoriasis in my scalp. When I was younger, my grandmother didn't know that she just knew I had dandruff really bad. And back then, they only had Head and Shoulders and dog mange. She would use the bar, and the Head and Shoulders was so strong, it's very strong, and it would strip the perm off of your hair. And so I wasn't getting perms at that time because perms weren't in existence then. And so my grandmother would wash my hair with Head and Shoulders, and then we would get our hair pressed. Um, as I stated earlier, when my grandmother began to really get ill, and she was diagnosed with renal failure and went to dialysis, they put that graft in the right arm. And so she lost strength in that arm, and she could no longer do our hair. So she went to this beauty shop, black owned, wasn't far from where we lived, and she spoke with the beautician about my sister and my youngest sister hair. And so at that particular time, I never forget, they had come out with pressing comb in a jar. That was the first perm. You guys look it up and do your research. And that was the first perm. And that was the first perm that me and my sisters ever got um, in our hair. And like in the late 80s, early 90s, after I had gotten married, I was in Target, and I seen Target had that perm pressing comb in a jar, and it was made by a black person because they had a black girl on the box, and I hadn't seen that in years. And so I started putting that on my hair, and that didn't help, the scalp part with the psoriasis until I got that until they diagnosed me in the early 90s. And the rheumatologist at that particular time, my rheumatologist at that particular time was Dr. Samuel Pegram, and he was one of the best in the state of Texas. And so he looked at my scalp, and he told me then, and then that's when he was able to talk to me about lupus and the kind that I had, because it's 11 different kinds, and people don't know that, but it is. It's 11 different kinds. And I have the worst one, where it affects the skin and your organs and your joints. Like I said earlier, I was diagnosed with osteoporosis of the spine, stenosis. Um, I have had back surgery. I have had my left knee total replacement. It also, as a young mother, I developed fibroids extremely bad, and I got total hysterectomy at the age of 43 or 44, because I knew at that time that I no longer would I would have any more children. Um, like I said, my youngest had gone off to college, and my oldest had come home. So I wasn't having any more children. So at that time, I went on and had it done. After I had that done, I had to have um, my left knee replaced, because um, for some reason lupus affects my left side. Um, I just have a lot of problems with the left side. It does not affect my right side, but it does affect my left side. My left, my rheumatologist had told me years ago that I would have to have a total knee replacement of the left knee. So I knew that, but me with my silly self, I didn't want to, go through that. I still wanted to go to work. I still wanted to be able to live my life, to be able to function. And so I did not want to do that. And so, but the older I got, and when my husband passed away, just the grieving process, the stress, um, made my lupus very, very active. And so I had to go on. That's when they placed me on the infusions, because I couldn't get the swelling out of my body, where my hands and um, my left knee, leg was so swollen. I never forget, around Thanksgiving holidays, I couldn't even put on shoes. And my son and my now daughter-in-law, they had went and found me some Crocs, and they bought me these Croc shoes, and I actually wore them because I couldn't, my feet were so big that I couldn't put shoes on. I was so swollen that I couldn't put shoes on. And so um my rheumatologist at that time told me that they would have to put me on the infusions to get this thing under control, whereas that I can live with this disease and still function on a daily basis. But lupus also keep you very, very fatigued. It makes you very tired. And so the last couple of days, I've been very tired. And even when I'm feeling that way, I have to I have to speak word into myself. Like I have to encourage myself. And so to get up and to keep moving. And so that's what made me start doing YouTube. And if you look at my page, it says Living My Life with Lupus. And so I wanted to be able to encourage others who might be battling this disease, who might have family members or know of someone with this disease. I wanted to use my platform to speak positivity, to encourage, to let people know whatever you're going through, you can get through. If God bring you if he bring it to you, he can bring you through it. Okay. um and I wanted to share with people what I had to go through. And so even though I was still had my ovaries and everything, I became extremely anemic because I still had a menstrual cycle. And in that, I always had a bad menstrual cycle. Like it always lasts. Like I hear women say theirs only lasts 3 days or 4 days. No, mine would last 7, and they were very heavy days. And so with that, I became anemic. I remember um, my blood was so low in the 700s that my doctor called me himself and told me, I need you to go to Methodist Hospital and go and admit yourself. He said they already know you're coming. All I need you to do is get you some night clothes and go on. That's all I need you to do. He say I need to get you a blood transfusion. Your blood is too low. You can die. You can have a heart attack. Your body it just completely shut down. Your blood count is like in the 700s. I don't even know how you functioning. I was still working, getting up, going to work every day. But when I got home, I was extremely tired. And on the weekend, like I can sleep for hours, hours. And so didn't know that this had taken place. And so when I heard my doctor's voice, and him saying, I need you to go, like, go right now. I want you to go in there and we're gonna give you some blood. Your blood is too low. It could cause you to have a heart attack. You can have a stroke. Your body can shut down at this point. And so I said, Dr. Pilgrim, I can't go right now. I just got off from work. My children, my husband. Oh, I was up in there good. I was just talking, y'all. And so he said, no, listen to me. If you don't do this, you not gonna make it. He said, because your body, your organs is not getting enough blood. He says, I don't know how you made it this long. He said, I really don't. He's saying you still work a full-time job. I don't know how you doing it. And so I went in and he said, listen, you could die. You could literally die. And he said it's already set up. They know you coming. You gonna have to stay the night, you know. And so it was a Friday. I went in, and they had my paperwork just like he said, but they kept me. They kept me. I think I was released like that Tuesday or Wednesday, cause they had to give me units of blood. And today after having a total hysterectomy, I still my blood is only like 10 point something, but it's better than being in the 700s. And so I would always have to go in and have I did that for a minute. I did that for a while, and so and have blood transfusions because um, I had these fibroids. And so one day when I went in to see him, he asked me. He said, you still have your female organs? And I said, yes, I still have a menstrual cycle and everything. And so he questioned me. He asked me, how bad was it? And so I told him. He said, well, I'm going to refer you out to this OBGYN, and I need you to go see her. And so when I went and spoke to her and talked to her, she did the ultrasound, and she found these fibroids, and one of them was huge. I had them so bad that they were actually coming down into, out through my vagina. That's just how bad I had them. And so he told me that I really needed to go see her. And so he knew something was going on with me, but he just couldn't pinpoint it. He knew and he was trying to figure, and that's why he asked me, did I still have my female organs, and was I still having menstrual cycles? Because I was in my 40s when this took place. And so I told him, and he said, well, I want you to, and he referred me out to this OBGYN, and I went in there to see her, and I spoke to her, and she had already read, his doctor's notes. She had already knew that I had lupus, and so she sent me and to have this ultrasound done, and I did it. And then she came back and told me, yeah, you got them bad, and so I had to have a total. She also talked to me about having the hysterectomy, had I thought about having, and my husband had just passed. And so she said that, are you thinking about? She didn't know I was a widow. And so she said, do you think you might want to have any more children? I told her, I looked at her, I said, oh no. Oh no, baby. My child bearing years are over, you know. And I said, my youngest is in college. Oh no, dear. Oh no, I wouldn't dare do that. I ain't that foolish, you know. And so she said, okay, because you're going to have a total hysterectomy. You have fibroids that are extremely bad. And so I went in, and now they have this mechanic where they only can do like, they don't have to cut you anymore. They could just put those three little holes or four little holes in your stomach and do whatever they need to do to you. And so I had that done. And so but it caused me to go into menopause very early. So when my son was getting was getting married, y'all, I had, you know, I hadn't got me a dress yet, and then the dress I wanted, they didn't have. They didn't have any of them, and so I had to physically get up and go to the to dealers and J.C. Penney's and look for me a dress, because the dress I initially wanted they didn't have in my size. So when me and my son, my oldest son, was doing the shopping, me, my oldest son, and my daughter-in-law, girl, I was having hot flashes. And my son say, I had to sit down, and my son say, Mama, what's wrong? I say, child, you don't understand. You ain't a woman. I say, but Brit, that's what I call my daughter-in-law. Her name Brittany, but I call her Brit. I say, Brit understand. I say, Brit, mother-in-law had, I wasn't a mother-in-law then. I say, ooh, I'm having hot flashes, because it threw me into menopause real early. And those hot flashes are bad. Oh my God. And like somebody had just set a flame up under you. Ooh, they were bad. They had you sweating, had you in a pile of sweat, you know. And so my son say, huh? I say, yeah, you don't get it, because you ain't got to go through this here. I say, but I'm having a hot flash. And I say, ooh, it's bad. I say, it's bad, child. Ooh, and I was just sweating. I had to sit down and catch my breath. I had to rest for a minute. A minute. A minute. And so, they like to put you on that hormonal drug. And I don't like to take medicine. I don't even like to take the medication that they have me on for lupus to control my pain. I don't even like to take that. And my rheumatologist told me, say, you you have been in pain for so long that you can endure the pain, because I didn't want nothing to alter my thinking or my ability. I wanted to be able, if I had to get up and go get me something to eat or cook or wanted to go to the mall, I wanted to be able to do that. I ain't want nothing to stop me from not being able to shop. Women, y'all know what it is. Y'all know how it is. And I love shoes. I'm a shoe lover. I got more shoes than I do clothes. But I was telling my son, I say, you don't understand, because you a male, you don't know. And so I was telling my daughter-in-law is a nurse. So my daughter-in-law, she say, oh yeah. Y'all, it was terrible. I was terrible. But girl, I say, Lord, oh, if you just bring me through this here. Now I don't have them as bad. I still have them every now and then, but I don't have them as bad as I did when I first had that hysterectomy. Lord, I was in that store. I just couldn't. I think we was in Dillard's. And then we had left there and went to J.C. Penney's. And I had caught another one in J.C. Penney's. Ooh, I say, boy, I can't. I'm gonna have to go home. Cause I can't do this. I can't do this right now. He say, Mama, you can't go home. We got to get this over with. Cause it was getting close to their wedding date. So and they wanted me to have the color that the wedding was, which was a steel gray. Uh, it wasn't pink. It was mauve and burgundy. And it's the strangest thing when they was getting married, setting up everything for the wedding and everything. They had asked me for my wedding album. And so she asked me, she said, Miss Brown, say, what color is that? She was asking me about the pink color. And I say, that wasn't pink, that was mauve. And my wedding was black, off-white, burgundy, and mauve. And so she took a liking to the mauve color. And so but my son and them wore gray tuxedos. It was gray, mauve, and white. That was her colors. But it was a beautiful ceremony. As I stated earlier, her parents had the same morals as my husband and his dad. They did not shack together. Um, um, they didn't do that. They had a long courtship. And so I like to say that they really, really, really had to know that this is who they wanted to be with for the rest of their life. So they got engaged. They 8 year of dating, and they've been together now for 10 years, but they've been married only maybe 3 or 4 years now. And I got married in December. Her parents got married in December. They got married in December. They wanted to keep the tradition going, but her parents, at the time that they got married, they were celebrating their 38 years of marriage. Her parents got married in high school. They went to school together. I mean, after they got out of high school, they went to high school together. They lived not too far from each other. Um, um, Mount Rose, Louisiana is where her parents are from. So, boys try to marry anything close to their mother. And for me, I did the same thing. I married my late husband, who had him and my dad had a lot of things in common. You know, they became good friends. And I said earlier, matter of fact, when my husband would work on Saturdays, he would go to my daddy's house. And I'd be sitting up there waiting on my husband to come home from work. He over there at my dad. I would have, and back then they ain't have cell phones, nor pages. Well, I think pages was out because I used to beep him all the time. But I would say, well, let me call over here, call my daddy's, and see if he over there. I say, I bet you that's where it he would be over there every other Saturday. He would get off from work and he would drive to my daddy. And my dad lived they lived a good 20 miles away from us. And so he would get off from work, and where he worked was on the southwest side of town or where we lived. And so my husband worked for the newspaper and he was a pressman. He actually made the paper once it was the writers, the journalism, people got through writing their articles or whatever, he was the person that would set up the press machines to make the paper. And so my husband would work on Saturdays, and he was off on Sundays and Mondays. And so on Saturdays, I'd be looking forward to be home, and he'd be over there at my daddy's house. I say, I'll be darned. I say, boy, you ain't married to my daddy. You married to me. What you doing? But they had this. They had so much in common, with each other, that they was always together, and that's how my family knew which girl um, my husband was married to, because he was always with my daddy. And so when my daddy would go visit my grandmother nieces, you know, my husband was always with him. And so that's how my family learned who he was. And so even at his funeral, they got up and spoke about how well my husband could cook, and how they um, got to know him, and which one of the girls that was my husband was married to. Um, and so I didn't know that they didn't know, which one which one he was married to. I didn't know that until after he passed and they stood up and said it. Even my pastor made the comment of um, how he became to know and love my husband, because my husband would always talk to him, and not only that, my husband would cook all the time. And so he's and barbecue all the time. And that's the first thing my pastor said, that, oh wait, I don't know if these boys, y'all don't know how to cook barbecue like your daddy, huh? Yeah, he didn't teach y'all his techniques. And so he said, I'm going to miss that pork shoulder with that coleslaw and that good old barbecue. He said, I'm going to miss that fried turkey and that cornbread dressing. Oh, my pastor was just up and just reminiscing on how well and everybody was laughing and agreeing with with my pastor. And he was saying, I'm a miss that, because whenever I wanted a taste of Memphis barbecue, I knew who to call on. He said, I knew that I could go over there to them Brown's house and get me some dinner. I could sit down and put my feet under the table. I could kick off my shoes and sit there and rock. When stuff, when you was little and stuff was good to you, you go to humming and singing. He saying I would go there, and I could sit under their table and kick my shoes off. And when I eat their food, I could just hum and sing. And so before my husband passed away, my husband wasn't a baker. I would do most of the baking. And so my husband started making these sweet potato pies. And I never forget, my pastor and his wife came and ate, at our house, and we had sweet potato pie. And so um, he ate that sweet potato pie, and my pastor, Pastor Birds, looked at him and say, boy, I want to literally slap you. He say, but this pie is so good. I can't, I just can't do it to. And they were so pretty that, you didn't see the nutmeg and the the cinnamon in the pie. They were so buttery and orange, in color, that you just didn't see that. But when you took a bite of it, you could taste all that in his pies. And so I he taught me how to make them, but I still didn't have it like he had it. And so my youngest son, with his managed tail, he told me, he said, Mama, just give it up. You ain't got it like daddy. You just ain't got it. And see, my oldest is not a sweet eater. He's not a person that that's into sweets. But my youngest is, like, he love uh, pies and cake, and his favorite is banana pudding. And when we would go out to eat, the restaurants had the instant banana pudding. And so my son asked me one day, he said, Mom, can you make banana pudding? And I said, yeah, but it's not made the way you eating. You actually eating instant pudding with some vanilla cookies around it. That's not really how banana pudding is made. And he say, Mama, can you make it? I think he was about 15 or 16 years old. Anyway, he say, Mama, can you make this? I say, yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. I say, matter of fact, I can make the custard by scratch. And so he said, Mama, would you make me one? And so I made the boy the banana pudding. Y'all, he came back and he told me, oh, Mama, this so good. And he say, I love the little trick you did with the vanilla cookies. He say, I just love that. I looked at him and fell out laughing. I say, boy, that ain't no trick. That's the way it's made. With the bananas, the fresh bananas, and the custard, and the vanilla wafers. He said, yeah, I like the trick you did with the cookies. I say, boy, that ain't no trick. That's actually how it's made. You've been eating it so long, with instant pudding and the cookies, that you don't even know that that's really how it's made. So when I did it for him that time, my husband, as much as he loves sweets, he did not eat banana pudding. That one his favorite was German chocolate cake. And so but my son, that tickled me so hard. I say, boy, if you don't get out of here, that ain't no trick. That's actually how it's made, boy. And so now when he wants banana pudding, I literally have to make it for him. And so he try to keep his weight down. Both of my boys are big, stout men, and they tall, but my youngest is taller than my oldest. And so my youngest stand like 6'2". And so when people see me with these two big young men, most of the elderly, they laugh and they stop and they say, "Ooh, you got two big bodyguards with you." I know people don't mess with you when they see these two big old men walk, because I'm short. I only stand like 5'2". At least that's what my driver's license say. And so my family is short. My sisters and brothers are short. My dad was short. And so my grandparents were short. And so my niece, I think my niece Cassidy is like, I think she stands maybe 5'4", 5'5". But my boys are the tallest now. My nephew, who's 17, my youngest sister, son. Now he's tall like his father. So it's him, my niece, his sister, and my two boys who actually have height. Now, my brother that's before me have 4 children, and our genes are so strong. But his oldest daughter looks just like me. Everybody used to ask me, was that my daughter? And I would tell them, no, she's actually my niece. But the Jackson genes are strong. So, even with our children, they all look alike. So you can't really tell who parents are who unless you ask, you know, who your mama and daddy, which one of them Jacksons is your parents, because even our children all look alike. And so his oldest daughter, his firstborn, everybody thought that she was my daughter, and because she looked exactly like me. His son, the baby boy, look like exactly like my boys. When you put them three together, you think that they are brothers, but they actually are first cousins. So um, even with that, we all look alike, and our children all look alike. But when my husband passed away, my youngest looked identical to his dad. I couldn't see it, you know, when my husband was living. People always said he looked like me until they seen his dad. And then they would tell me, my coworkers would say, oh girl, oh girl, who had him? You or the daddy? Cause like he looked just like your husband. Oh, he'd have spent, but my husband wasn't an image of his mother, you know. And but I didn't look at it. I didn't see that until my husband passed away. And so right now today, when his family see pictures of them, they always say, "Oh, if he don't look just like Larry, I don't know what does. He the spitting image of Larry." That's all. That's the message that they would always put under the pictures. But we do get to see them. Um, Around September. They always have the family reunion Labor Day weekend. So we get the opportunity to travel to Memphis. My daughter in law got the opportunity the last 2 years to really see and mingle with my husband's side of the family. And so with my in-laws being passed away, I have one brother-in-law. My mother-in-law had a very small family. She had 3 boys. She was the only one, I think, out of 10 children that had the smallest family. And she was a big cook as well. So around Thanksgiving and Christmas, everybody was at her house for Thanksgiving. And so my husband was a big cook, and he cooked well. And when he would go home, him and his mom would swipe out recipes and different things like that. And it was fun. So I do get to see them every year around Labor Day for the family reunion, because it's a big thing for them now that all of my mother-in-law's sisters and brothers passed away. The youngest boy passed away last year, Uncle John. And so you know, I still make sure that my children stay connected to their family. And he does. Now, my youngest don't, because my youngest stays gone a lot. He stays out of Texas a whole lot with the job he does. And so, um, he keep me really, really on bended knees, praying that the group of his co-workers that he be with, that they all return back to Texas safely to their families because of the job that they hold. Let me see what you guys are saying. Yeah, the job he holds, and it's not. It's a very stressful job. It's a job where they're not respected in this day and time as law enforcement. And so he hunt down some of the worst of the worst uh, criminals. And so even with him being gone, um, I live here in Houston. He stays outside of Houston where he went to college. And so, I pray for them daily, daily, you know, and he knows to call me so I can hear his voice. He know not to send me a text. He knows to literally, call mom so mom can hear that I'm okay. And so, even my oldest son, who he thinks he's everybody's father, he really do. He think that I'm supposed to do as he says, and I have to tell him, hey, hold on, back up, look, remember who you're talking to. Yeah, let's change this thing because you belong to me. You I ain't have you. I mean, you didn't have me. I had you. So, even with him sometimes, um, and him picking up um, where his dad left off, I think that's where he get um, that strongness from, you know. And so he really don't mean any harm. It's all out of love. But sometimes, y'all, it just aggravates me. It get on my nerves. I have to lock the top lock every time I go out and in of my apartment because they have keys, and he ain't he just come right on in, you know. And so I keep my top lock locked because I done told you over and over and over again, just because you have a key does not mean you could just walk in. You still have to knock. You still have to call me and say, Mama, I'm on my way by, or something. Don't just walk up in here because you can. Boy, that ain't what that's for. I had to tell him that over and over again, and then my daughter-in-law, I think she had to tell him, hey, hubby, that's your mama grown. You got to allow your mom to be the person she is. You can't do that. Don't do that. Quit doing that. Didn't you hear her say stop doing that? And that's when he really, really stopped doing it. But he still had that same mentality. He a Taurus. He bullheaded. He's stubborn. You know, and he still had that sternness and want to protect me, and I told him, hey, that ain't no way to do things. But he a good listener. He a good listener. He do what he's supposed to do. He once he seen, oh, mama ain't playing, at the age of 8 or 9, he cut out a whole lot of stuff. And my youngest, how he stopped is because his foolishness in school is because once he learned how to play football, the UIL, even though you had to make the grades, he didn't have a problem with that, but he had problem of doing silly things. And so the UIL said, well, even if you make good grades, if your conduct ain't good, you still can't play. So that's what altered him in high school to stop, doing silly stuff, you know. And so that's really what football is really what molded him, that really kept him in line because he knew he couldn't play. He knew he couldn't hit that field. He knew he couldn't even put on the uniform if he got a P or a U in conduct. So them two never had problems when it came down to learning and doing they book work. He had a problem with um, the childishness in him. And so high school, when he got to high school is what really altered him, and he really grew up into the person he is today because he knew he couldn't, and he loved football so much that he loved the sport that it just hurt his feelings if he couldn't put on that uniform and hit that field. And so he only played like a couple of games his freshman year. From there, he was so dominant that he ended up going straight to varsity football, And so I was excited about that because that means I ain't had to go in the middle of the day or in the evening to sit out there in this field to watch him play football because the heat, I couldn't deal with the heat. And so um and as I stated earlier, I was his cheerleader, you know, and and it was hilarious when I heard the guys, tell him, "Hey man, KB, your cheerleader is here. She in the house, And so, yeah, when he would be on the field and he'd be running off the field, a big old body, he'd be running off the field. They say, man, your cheerleader section, they here, she here, and other parents would sit by me, sit by me because I was so loud in them stadium. They would tell me, hey, yell for such and such. They would tell me their child's name and I would yell it out, and that's how I met a lot of the parents because I was the loudest one in the stand. In the stand. And then on top of that, I went and got me a cowbell. And so I would ring that bell too. That bell too. Oh, I was a mess. I was a mess. And they used to tell me when it was open house, and I would have to go around and meet the teachers. Well, the teachers had already knew that I worked for the school district, and so he was the main one. He would always say, "Now, Mama, when you get up in there and get to meeting my teachers, don't have that look on your face." I say, "What look? What look?" Him and his dad used to tell me about that all the time. You know that look that you like to give them teachers when they talking to you about my progress. I say, "Son, what look is that?" And so I say, okay, well, I'm going to try not to do it, but I don't know what look that is. I say, well, you got to understand, son, that, I don't, just like I was raised, just like your grandfather didn't play with us when we was in school. Um, I don't play with y'all. That was instilled in me. So what I instilled in you, I can't help that. I can't help that. And I say you got to get it. You have to know that you know it. And I say I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't mean to look that whatever look you talking about. I don't know what look you're talking about, but I'm my business is you. I have to, and cause I work for the district. These people know that, you know, and so I want them to know, hey, I ain't no employee no more. I'm a parent, and that comes first. Your well-being comes first, and I want them to know that I'm not here to be your friend because me and you work for the same district. Oh no, that ain't what I'm about. And I say that's not. I'm a parent. I'm your mother. And I'm here about your progress, what you actually doing, and what they doing in this classroom. They ain't just sitting up there passing out worksheets. They actually teaching from the textbook, that they actually not teaching you to pass this standardized testing so they can get their money. This school can get their money and they can hire. No, because if it wasn't for you, they wouldn't have jobs. I said I want them to do their job. Because I work for them. Does I still pay taxes? And see, HISD have some of the biggest taxes in Texas, in Houston. Yes, we do. Yeah. And you pay them, you're not exempt from them. You still have to pay them until you get up in age. I think 65 or either 70. You still have to pay school taxes. Now you get exempt from a lot of the other taxes like homestead and all that, property and all that. Yeah, you get exempted for that, but they don't exempt you from school taxes. I never forget my daddy going down there to the tax place and saying why I still gotta pay school taxes because all my children grown. Matter of fact, they got their own families. They got this, and they told him, well, when you turn 65 or 70, you no longer have to pay property taxes, school taxes. I mean, so that's you not exempt from that. See, people well, the cost of living is cheaper here. Oh, but when they put all them taxes on you, you change that very quickly, very quick. And I don't see where people say it's so cheaper for them to live here. Because we have to pay a lot of taxes that other states don't have to pay. We do. And so, and then, like say for instance, if you move out of Harris County, and mind you, Harris County is the biggest county in Houston. It goes all around the city. you know. And so if you move to Fort Bend still have taxes, but you're not you don't have to pay Harris County taxes. You understand? So Harris County is very big, very big, and so the school taxes you're not exempt from that. They don't take that away from you until you reach 65 or 70 years old. I think that's what they told my dad, and my dad was mad. Oh, he was so mad. He didn't know what to do with himself. Because he told him, say, hell, I got grandchildren that then graduated from college, and y'all still want to hold me with these school taxes, you know. And he was exempt from everything else when he retired, and so yeah, he was mad. He was hotter than a six shooter, child. He was paying them because I was down there with him. I had to take him. And so he was mad. He is one of my daughters now. Her children, they grown. They in college. They didn't grad. And y'all still want to make me pay school taxes? Ooh, he was mad. He was hot. He was hot. But yeah, we pay school taxes, for a long time. You don't get exempt from them, and so yeah, uh and I, again, like I say, I don't know how people sit there and say that, yeah, Texas is like one of the cheapest, especially Houston is one of the cheapest places you can live, you know and being here all my life, I don't get it, because we get taxed for a whole lot of things, and being a homeowner is one of them. You pay the school taxes, you pay your property taxes, and then they put them other taxes on you, and then they put them other taxes on you. So you taxed out, and so it's a thing, and I kind of understand what he was talking about when I became a homeowner, back in 94, 95, somewhere back off up in there. I can understand the frustration that my dad had at that particular time. But yeah, it was something. But I thank so many of you for coming and listening to me today. It has been a week that has been kind of tiresome for me. Today, I was telling someone who was on earlier, who deal with being fatigued and suffer with joint pain. And with me having lupus, I also developed fibromyalgia. And fibromyalgia alone is something that is very painful, because it's not in the joints, it's in the tissue, in the nerves of your body. So I've been suffering with being fatigued, tired for the last couple of days. So I was supposed to do a live chat yesterday, but I just didn't have the energy. And so when you don't have the energy, you can't really concentrate. You can't really think things clearly. When you're in a lot of pain, you can't. And so, as I stated earlier, I don't even like to take the medication that helps me with the pain. I don't even like to take that, because what they have me on is very strong, and it knocks me off my feet. And so I don't like to take it if I don't have to, especially if I want to be able to move around, like like um like you know walk my dog, do different, go to the store, different things like that. When I want to be able to do that, I don't take my medication like I should. And so I get in trouble by that with my rheumatologist, because I don't indulge in that, because I want to be able to live my life. You know, I want to be able to, when I want to go to the store, I can get up and go. You know, I want to be able to function. So most of the time, I take it at night. When I'm getting ready to rest and not move around, I'll take it then. But it's not a regular thing for me. And my doctors, especially my rheumatologists, get me for that, because they always tell me that I have a high tolerance for pain. And that's because before even being diagnosed with lupus, I was dealing with pain. And so they told me then, back then, before being diagnosed, and my rheumatologist is the one who actually told me that you have built a high tolerance for pain. He said, because I don't know how you have endured all this time. And so I find that in myself. So they fuss at me. I get in trouble for not doing like I'm supposed to. And so my sons, they know when I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So not only do my doctor fuss with me, they fuss with me as well. And when you go against your doctor, they get kind of like an attitude, you know, because they be like, well, that's one reason why you're here, dear. You know, for me to help you. Can't help you if you ain't gonna do like you supposed to do. You supposed to do. So even in my tiredness, even in feeling really fatigued, I still read the book of Psalms. I still read that on a daily basis, and I still speak word into myself to feel positive, to think positive. I don't like drama. I don't like negativity. I don't even watch people on YouTube spitting that type of information out. And if I catch one and do, I move around. I don't engage in it because I don't want to feed my body with that. So that's what started me to doing live chats and coming on and wanting to speak positive, wanting to encourage someone else by my life, and to let them know you're able to go to get through it. You just got to stay strong. You got to grab some strength from somewhere, from in within yourself. It's in you. It's in you. It's in you. And I like to tell people, it's one thing we know. We know the day we born. We know the day, the time, the all the way down to the second that we come into this world, but we never know how we're going to leave this world or when we're going to leave this world. That's what that dash means. You ever looked at a headstone where it has the the day, the year you were born, the month, the day, and the year you were born, and then it has that dash, and then you see that it's not a date there, or it is a date that the person expired. I say that's what that dash mean, because you don't know how or when you're gonna leave this earth. Okay, so each day, be thankful for that day that God gives you. Speak life, speak positivity into your life, that you are more than a conqueror, that you are victorious in this thing called life. And nothing can stop you. Nothing, nothing, nothing can stop you from being the person that you are called to be. Okay, that again, the word Gethsemane, they spoke of it as a garden that Christ was in, that he visited before going to the cross. But it was a beautiful place, but it also means olive press. We are the olive, and the more life presses us, the more the trials and tribulations we go through, that oil comes out, that anointing that God had placed over your life when you were in your mother's womb. So speak that over your life. Speak it into you. Get the mindset of thinking positive things. The Bible says that it's life in the power of the tongue. We have to learn to speak life. We have to learn to speak those things as though they are into the right now. Come on, y'all. Just stay with me for a minute here. You got to learn to speak those things into your life. And I want you, if you can hear me, I want you to begin to speak positive. See, once you begin to speak those things as though they are in the right now, those things begin to come. You speak those things into existence. And if you speak life, life will come. If you speak positive, positive will come. But if you speak negative, negative is always around. The devil is always busy. He's always on his job. When even when we're asleep, the devil is busy. He's busy. He's busy. So, you have to stay on your job. And I want you to know that I got this way by all the trials and tribulations that life has thrown me. But I have overcome. I have overcome those things. And even in death, you know, I, I lost loved ones. And even in that, I overcame. See, when the devil tried to take me out in 2010, when my husband left this earth, after 28 years of marriage, when the devil tried to take me out, God said, oh no, she belonged to me. She belonged to me. And even though it was a process that I had to go through, don't you know I'm stronger now than I was in 2010? Don't you know I can stand when I want to give up? Don't you know I'm able to speak those things into my life, into my spirit? You hear me? Even when the enemy tried to, and he still tried to take me out, but he got to come from all angles. Because I refuse to let him have me. I refuse to let him have my family. See, when he can't no longer get to you, he go through your family. He'll get what's closest to you. He'll try to take your attention, that of what you really love. He'll try to take it from you. And so I've been through that. So now I can stand what God has put in me. I'm able to stand and speak those things as though they are. I'm able to speak things into existence. I'm able to speak over my children. They're not children, Lord. They're grown men. But but I'm able to speak over them. And I even taught them to speak things into their life, whatever they needed and wanted. Give God the glory, because it's all because of Him. And as I stated earlier, my son, before he left on his job, that assignment that he's gone to do, he came home and he was talking to me, and he told me that something just welled up in him during the Christmas holidays when he was home, that welled up in him, and he just started crying. He was on his way to one of his good friend's house, and he just started crying because he thought about what he had to go through college, um, and through being trained to be a U.S. Marshal, and not only for the state of Texas. See, he travels. He's just not a U.S. Marshal for the state of Texas. He's able to go um, um, all over the United States. So he's just not exempt to Texas, because you have some that's just exempt to where they are, and he is not. And so he told me just before he got ready to go on to his assignment that he's away on now. He told me that he just started crying, that he began to think about everything that he had to go through to get where he is today. And so I told him then, I said, when you accepted Christ into your life, he never left. He never left. See, we might leave him, but he'll never leave us once we accept him into our life. And I said, at the age of 13, when you were baptized, because see, me and my husband just didn't allow them to go and join church because we did. They had to know um, who God was. They had to confess it with their mouth. So they just couldn't go and join church because we were joining church. No. Mm-mm. My husband didn't play that. My husband said he remembered being on the morning bench. When he was raised Baptist. See, I was raised Methodist. So in the Methodist church, you didn't. It wasn't no such thing as a morning bench. you know. And so my husband, we had this discussion, and so we talked about them joining church, but they had to know God for themselves. And so um, they had to be able to speak, to know who God was, and who Christ was, and what He did. And so we just didn't allow them to get up and join church because we joined. So they had to know it for themselves, and then confess it with their mouth, and say it, and then we will allow them to be baptized and join church. But yeah, you had to know that and I just want to speak positivity into anyone that might be going through anything that this thing called life throws at us. You have to just speak it over yourself. You have to encourage yourself. You have to put those positive thoughts into your mind. You just have to. And any negativity, you have to come away from it. Even on YouTube, even on Facebook, you can't in engage yourself in the mess. You have to come away from it. And so I learned that, you know, and so in that, I want to continue with that, with my walk, in this life, because when you feed your body good stuff, your body adjusts to the good things, and it shows up. Your skin begin to glow. You begin to, for women, and I'm talking about women, you get this shape. Y'all come on now. Your hair begin to grow. You had a shine about you when you feed your body the nutrients that it needs. The vegetables, the fruit. Stay away from all those starches and sugars. Bread. I'm a bread eater. I love bread. But the older I get, and my health, I had to change from that. I had to, because my grandparents were from Louisiana. I was raised on rice. Okay, we ate rice every day. Okay, so so I was raised on it, but I didn't pick up weight because we were outside running and playing. So none of us were like fat people, you know. And so, but when I got older and stopped moving as much as I was, I began to pick up weight, you know. And now that I'm older and wiser, I've changed my diet. I feed my body what it needs. I eat them vegetables. I eat that fruit. Even though I couldn't eat bananas. Bananas gave me indigestion real bad. I had a hiatal hernia, and I had to go in. It had sunk down. It had turned itself in, and I had to go in, and they had to actually remove it, cut it off. Cut that bulge off of my stomach. And so having that procedure, it caused my stomach to shrink. So now when I eat, I can't eat like a full plate of food. I can only eat it like small pieces of it at a time. And so my oldest son noticed, Mama, he say, Mama, what's wrong? Why you can't eat? And I say, well, when I had that surgery, it don't allow me to eat like that. I can only eat like small amounts at a time. I have to sit it aside, and then I have to go, once that digests and I feel hungry again, I have to go back and finish my plate of food. And it might not be that much, but I can't consume it all at one time like I used to. And so he said, how come you eat that way? I say, because when I had that surgery done, he said, yeah, I remember. And I say, well, when I had it done, I don't know what they did to my stomach. I say, but I can't eat like that. I can't consume that amount of food anymore. I can only eat pieces of it, a small amount of it at a time. And so it might take me all day to eat a plate of food, because I get full real fast. And so at me weighing my heaviest a couple of years ago, I think I was almost 300 pounds, but now I'm far, far under that. Lord Jesus, I'm like 180, maybe 181 pounds, at the most. And my when my youngest came home here before he left, um, he looked at me. He said, "Mama, why you losing all that weight?" I say, "I look small to you." He said, "Yeah, you ain't like you used to be." I say, "Oh boy." And I say, "Oh, that's because I can't." Kelvin, my oldest son, asked me that the same thing around the holidays. And I was sitting there, but he wasn't there. He was in the street. So I told him, I say, I can't eat. I can't eat the way I used to. I only can eat a little bit at a time, and then I'm done. I can't just consume that plate of food right then. And I don't care if it's a small plate of food. I just can't. I can't do it. It don't take much. And I'm gonna tell you another thing I can't do. I can't drink anything before eating, because if I drink something and then try to eat, I'm still not going. I can only take like a couple of bites, 2 or 3 bites, and then I'm done. I can't consume it. And so, yeah, that's what happened. I've been through a lot though, but I thank God for everything that I've been through because it teaches me, it gives me strength, you know, and I just want to use my platform to encourage and speak positive things into other people's lives who might be going through because you never know um, what a person might be going through. Never, never. And until they actually say it, and then you can kind of understand. But if you never been through it, if you never experienced it, then you really wouldn't have a clue. You know, one of my good friends, and then I'm a sign off. One of my good friends, um, that I was good friends. We were very close. All of her husband, Greg Portier, passed away a couple of weeks ago. He had been sick for right at 3 months before his passing. But I call her every day. I still speak to her every day. So when I text her earlier, but when I hang from you guys, I'm gonna call her and see, how she's doing, because she have went back to work. And so, in our texting, she always tell me she's trying to stay busy. But our last conversation, which was Sunday, she asked me, she said, Rochelle, she said, can I ask you something? I said, yes. She said, did you ever feel like that you wanted to go and be where Larry was? I said, girl, yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I had given up on life when my husband passed away. And I told her I had, and they would call me every day. Her and Nyla and the Nelsons. We were all in marriage ministry together. Matter of fact, um, I think my family was the last one who joined church, but we all joined the same year, and we met in marriage ministry. And so we all became good friends. And so my husband passed first, and then she just lost her husband. And so me and her was talking Sunday, and she asked me, she said, did you ever feel like you wanted to go and just be with them? And I said, yeah, yeah, Jackie. I said, that's why I'm able to be here with you, to talk to you, because I've been there. I've been through it. And I say, you call me any time of the day, any time of the night that you want to talk to me, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. They were always at my house, her and her husband. They met in college. They met at Texas Southern University. He was originally born and raised in Florida. She was born and raised in Connecticut. Connecticut. They met in college. And I'm going to tell you guys this. You guys are not going to believe this. When she told me that they were married 28 years, when her husband, my, my good friend, passed away, I was just floored because I told her, I say, Jackie, you ain't going to believe this. She say, what? I say, don't you know when Larry passed, we were married 28 years? She said, wow. She said, I had knew you and Larry had been together for a long time, but I didn't know y'all had been married the same as Greg and I. And I said, yes. See, they were right there with me by my side as well. So, I wanted to, this was my friend. This was my big sis. They older than me. This is my big sis. I wanted to be there for her just as well as they call me. And so Nyla and Brenda said, they say, well, Rochelle, you've been through it, and me and Brenda, we ain't experienced that yet. And so I told them, I said, yeah, I say, but y'all was always there for me, you know. And so Nyla, she just don't do those type of things very well. But it's one thing I can say, that she was there with me, her and her husband, they all were. And so when Greg passed and everything, you know, I knew it was going to be difficult for her. I knew the pain that she would have to, that she was feeling, you know. And so I told her, I said, well, Jackie, I said, my husband, not my husband, Lord, my daughter-in-law mother was another one who called me. Not only that, she would come to my house every morning. If she didn't call, she showed up. She called every day, and she showed up at my house every day. And she would sit there and talk to me for hours. And if I didn't answer that phone when she called, you could best believe that by 15, 20 minutes, because they didn't live far from us. And by 15, 20 minutes, no Lord, it wasn't an hour. Like 30 minutes, she was there ringing my doorbell, beating my door down, trying to, and she would, if I took my time, girl, I know you're in there. She'd be out there hollering, you know. I mean, she was just there for me, and so she would sit there with me for hours. I would cry and she would wipe my tears, consoling me. I asked her, I said, well, when the pain gonna go away? She said, girl, that's a process you gonna have to go through. It's just a process, and you gonna have to go through it. She said, but each day that God give you, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better and better and better. And sure enough, each day, now it took me about 2 years, but each day it got better and better. And so Jackie now, um, she asked me that, and she said that, how did she know? Because she hadn't lost. I said no, but she had a lot of wisdom, that she would tell me, that even though I hadn't lost anyone like a spouse, I have lost loved ones. Like she had lost her mother and her father. So, I'm pretty sure that was difficult for her at that time. Now, my mother is still living, but my mother did not raise me. She didn't raise any of her children. My dad did. So the relationship that we had with my dad was more of a bond with my grandparents and him than it was my mother. And it's like that today. So my mother just didn't have the parenting skills. And at her age, at 67, 68, she still don't have it. It just, she just didn't have it. And we as adults accepted that. That she just didn't have the parenting skills. She just don't know. But you would think, even at her older age, that she would know better, but she don't, because she don't know how to communicate, to us. And it's probably because she has so much guilt, you know, within, that she hasn't been able to get rid of. So I think that's what's her biggest hindrance. But I don't hold anything against her. And because in order for me to be able to be healed from it, I had to give up a whole lot. So at the age of 25, 27, I think is when I came to grips with everything, about my mom. And so, and to be able to raise, be a good mother for my children. So, even though I didn't have my mother in my life, neither one of our sisters and brothers, even though we didn't have that, we still um, came to grips with the understanding that, we just didn't have it, and we were able to move on and live our life um, the way God has raised us to be, has instructed us to be. Because it's one thing God says, that He knew us before we were in our mother's womb. So if you just meditate on that, you know, for a couple of days, you can understand, the relationship of parenting, how distinguished it is, and how um, your parents were just the vehicle. Your mom was just the vehicle to carry you, to bring you into this world. God is the one who ordained you to get here. He's the one who 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 spoke it into your mom. When you think about that scripture, I knew you before you even knew yourself. You know, and that holds true. That's why the Bible, God's word, has never been debunked. It's been debated, but but you can't. It's never been where it's that it's not so. Everything, they haven't proved that Bible is a lie. It just haven't been proved. you know and you have so many debates about it, but it's still, they still cannot say that Christ did not come in human form and die, because it's evident of it that he did. You know so when you able to meditate on that, you're able to see life for what it is. And then it God still have a way surprising you, because his thoughts are not our thoughts. We will not be able to, in this life, in this form, obtain who really God is, how he really thinks. We can guess. We know by our life experiences and what he has brought us through. But again, he says, my thoughts are not your thoughts. I'm the great I am. I am the beginning and the ending. No other man can come through. He has to come through me. You know. So I'm thankful for that word. I'm not a Bible scholar, but the little bit I do know, ooh wee, that has been evident in my life. That it's been God. It's been Him who's been walking with me, who's been talking to me, who has encouraged me. It's Him. It's Him, and so it has allowed me to speak, those things as though they are in the right now. So I tell you, to speak those things. Don't speak negativity. Don't even feed into it. Feed your mind, feed your body with positive things. Well, you guys, I love you so much. I thank you for being with me, listening to me, hearing me. And if I was able to speak to you and enlighten whatever you might be going through. I don't know. But whatever you might be going through, just know if you wake up every day, you got a purpose and you make the best out of it. You speak to yourself, encourage yourself with God's word, speak it into your life. Even if you don't know it, even if you just know one scripture that has been laid on your heart, if you just speak that into you daily, you will begin to see with the naked eye. You will begin to feel better and better and better. Even though I felt bad these last couple of days, this morning I got up and I began to speak. I continued to encourage myself. And I was in a couple of my subscribers live earlier today, and I was telling one that I was, I'm tired. I'm real tired. I've been tired for the last couple of days, very fatigued because lupus does that to you. It's and fibromyalgia as well. It snatches your energy, you know. And so as I began to talk to her and tell her that I had been feeling, tired um, for the last couple of days, I told her, listening to her just before going live, I spoke, encouraging words into myself. And then I hit that live button and you got me. And you see how I'm laughing? That's because I feel good. Even though I feel tired, I still feel good. You understand? And I hit that live button and I come on live and I've been talking ever since. And I said at the beginning, I could talk. I used to talk my husband to sleep. If I get on a good enough roll, girl, I don't know when to shut up. But but I gotta let you guys go because I want to catch other people who might be going live, and I want to share my love. I want to spread my love to them. I want to let them know that I'm here for you. Let's stay connected. Let's support each other. So I thank you all for coming and listening to me, and I hope I encourage someone today. Just know, speak positive things into your mind and your body. Don't let anyone tell you the opposite of who you are. You know what your purpose is here in this thing we call life. Amen. So I thank you all, and I always leave this message most of the time at the end of most of my all of my comments. I always tell my subscribers and people who I watch videos, I always leave them a comment. And at the end of that comment, I always tell them to stay blessed and not stressed. Okay? Peace and love. All the way from Houston, Texas. You guys stay blessed. I love you and I thank you for coming into my live chat and listening to me. Thank you. And I hope to chat with you again soon. Bye bye. Now I got to figure out how how to end this thing, because I ain't learned that yet either. Oh God. Oh wow.